Oh, oh, you are there? You're ready to go. I hope so, because today we see carpet pythons almost in the wild, and how do they live there? Let's go! And so guys, here we have our carpet python. So this Australian species is quite common now and is becoming a trend in the hobby, but for a long time it was an underground species that we only find at homes where people were a little bit trained about snakes, okay? It was not a beginner snake. And this snake here actually is a yearling, so is about a year and a half old and, you know, about 4 foot long. So these guys can measure, depending on the subspecies, because there's multiple subspecies. We can make another video about these subspecies, by the way, because there are 7 subspecies slash species, depending on how you talk, who you talk to, and what species, of course. This is a cross between what we call a Darwin carpet python. So how do I know it's Darwin carpet python? So, and not the Cape one or not the Cape York one, because it's carrying a het albino, the albino gene, being a het albino. Of course, it's not white and orange like you find my albino Sukuna that you can find a photo right here, you know, but it is still, you know, a pretty specimen. So it is a cross. We don't know with what, of course. Not of course, but we don't know actually. And the thing is that this species, as you can see, is moves a lot more than the regular ball python that you find in homes. Now these guys are semi-arboreal. They can be found in garden like here in Australia. Of course, they're almost in the wild. So we're not in Australia, but we can find these guys also in Australia. Well, they come from Australia, but you can find them in gardens, you know, in Brisbane and Darwin, in a lot of space all over Australia, by the way, or almost all over Australia, and up to, you know, the red sander with morelia bredli, so the Bredl's python. These guys, being semi-arboreal, they love to climb, of course. So, I mean, yeah, should we find another one in a tree? Let's go. So guys, here we have what we said, a carpet python in a tree. Now it is on the low branch, but you can find them really high up into the trees, guys. It is really a species that is going everywhere. It can go underwater, it can go, because we have seen them chasing birds and rodents while being hidden in the water. So we are gonna catch this one, and we are gonna talk a little bit about the husbandry of these little guys. Now be aware that if you are with a wild carpet python, don't go with your snake on your face, and the snake with the face on your face, because it's maybe not the best idea. So now when you have a carpet python like this, you know, on a tree, there is multiple stuff you can do. You can keep it, or you can just ungrab the tree. Now there are multiple ways of doing it. Sometimes a little bit tricky, you know. So what I like to do is I unfold the tail, and we do it like that. So we are going into a little bit into the sun, guys. Come with me. So here we are in the sun a little bit to enjoy that beauty of a snake, you know. Let's go a little bit more over here. So let's go a little bit over here. So as you can see, a beautiful carpet python. Now how do you keep these guys? Well, on stuff, you know, you can have a tree in your enclosure if you can go outside. But if you're like me in Europe, you have to go inside with it most of the time, of course. How do you keep them in you know, I personally, for one, I would go on a tank. It's a little higher, you know. Being semi-arboreal, these guys need to be high. They also need to be, I mean, they have a ground space. They need ground space. So for example, my tank is now 150 by 50 by 50, but you can go, for example, which is one that I have right now at home, is a 120 by 80 high to 50 deep. So you can go higher if you want, of course. You know, you can go 6 foot, you know, 180 centimeters, 2 meters, of course, if you want. But this is the bare minimum, I would say. Now, if you can go bigger, of course, always go bigger. There is, unlike some other species, there is no limit to a carpet python enclosure. The bigger the tank, the more the snake is gonna move. It's like all species, but these species more than others, you would say, more common species at least, I should say. When it comes to temperatures, I would say that where we find our snake here is around 30 degrees. So what I do at home is I have a hotspot of around 34, 35, 36 degrees Celsius maximum, you know. And on the other side of the tank, where it's more like the shadow, you know, I would go more on something that is a little bit more like a, I don't know, like something 24, 26, 28 degrees, you know. 26 degrees is pretty good temperature. It's a pretty good temperature for a cold spot during the day. Now, depending on your species, subspecies, the night will change. Diamond pythons can go lower, and of course during the day they have to go lower also than your average carpet python. Now, your average carpet python, like here, this female is gonna need an ambient spot of 24 degrees Celsius. That's what I do, at least 24 degrees Celsius with these guys. Now, you have winters and summers. What I do is in the winter I have a little less temperature, you know, like more like 18 to 20 degrees during the night, and having like 28 degrees Celsius on the hot side during the winter, of course. When it comes to humidity, these guys, you know, they're hardy snakes. They're hard snake. You can't go on, don't over exaggerate, but you can't have like more like, you know, don't have to look around for humidity, because it's not gonna be the end of the world you don't have a high humidity. Of course, if you want the humidity, I would go between 55 and 75% humidity. It's already good, you know. They don't really high level of humidity, but it's already something, okay? Now, we said the tank size, temperature, humidity, but how actually do they live in the wild? Now, you have a lot of videos, you know. We are almost in the wild, so we're not in the wild. So you can see trees like that behind me. They climb that, and they will hunt possums, for example, big possums, big birds, lorikeet, for example. Also, there are small birds, of course, but they will hunt actually, or prey on everything they can fit in their mouth, actually in their body, I should say, you know. But these guys, you know, you will find sometimes, you know, carpet python, coastal carpet python, fall off a tree 4 meters high with its prey in his mouth and still eating, and with it being fine. Isn't that crazy for these guys? This is truly the supreme semi-arboreal snake. You might say scrub pythons are even better, but scrub pythons, in my opinion, are a little more arboreal than carpet python. So when it comes to feeding, you know, they can eat apples. They will eat, of course, mice, as I said, possums in the wild, lizards in the wild. In the wild, they will eat lizards. When they're smaller, they will eat small skinks, for example. Now, most adults will eat rodents, possums. For example, the wild possums, rats when there are rats. You know, they can eat rabbits also, of course, also. They can eat like birds, a little bit of everything actually. But in captivity, what we feed most of the time are rodents, rats, mice. You know, I feed, and most people feed now also like a little bit of birds. It's always something super important to have birds, you know, in your fridge for your carpet python. Because its enrichment, food variety, also really important. Now, do I feed them often? Nah. These are one of the snakes that I feed the less. Now at home I only have 8 snakes, you know, maybe 9 when you see that video. But carpet python, when you're small, I feed them every 8 to 10 days, not more, because otherwise it would be too much. But once they are more like now, like she is, a yearling, 1.5 years, or something like that, I will give them every 2 weeks. And for an adult, you might say, an adult, once a month, every 5, 6 weeks even, you know, depending on what you feed, of course. Vary also, you know, your schedule, not every month. Do sometimes 6 months, 6 weeks. Do sometimes 2 months. Do sometimes 3 weeks in a row. Vary a little bit, because these guys will benefit from it. Now, carpet pythons are really, really smart snakes, you might know that. And to give you an idea, for example, of, how incredible these snakes are, here they are going, not fall. This snake is not gonna fall, as you can see, because their prehensile tail here, they have a prehensile tail, which leads to these guys being real climbers and being able to climb big branch and not fall off of big trees too. So these guys are found all over Australia, as you know. We're almost in the wild. We're in Belgium still, so because I'm not gonna make a trip for a 5-minute video, or I should say a 15-minute video about carpet python. So maybe we'll do one, but not today. So I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share. Don't forget to support with Star. Don't forget to support our responsible reptile keeping. Don't forget Instagram, of course. And I hope to see you on the next one. Let's go.